Okay, Bitcoin is now illegal. 10 years in jail and 100%, 90% tax if you transact in Bitcoin, right? And this is the Save America legislation. We've got a national crisis taking place here as a result of our currency failing. We need to take these actions to, for the benefit and the safety of our country. In terms of real purchasing power, I mean, at the dollar a set, I mean, the equivalent gasoline might be $1,000 a gallon too, because the government will have debased the currency. And that's going to be a horrible experience for the world, for a lot of people, for everything else. And yet, out of that is going to come a really great future. It'd be nice if there was a soft landing, and it's a possible outcome that we'll have a really high rate of inflation and we'll have political change, and somebody will say, let's go to a Bitcoin standard. We'll do it before we have hyperinflation. Before I got into Bitcoin, I was a fund manager for most of my career. Starting in the 80s, I was in technology and venture capital. And so I saw the PC emerge, and then, the internet emerge, and was a big investor in that. And in 2003, I kind of retired from all that and was kind of, managing my own money and coaching my kids' sports teams. And then and throughout all that, I was kind of a gold bug and an Austrian economist. I kind of recognized that the Fed and the system was broken and getting more broken over time. But, it was slower back then. Now it's getting really fast. And so in 2003, I kind of retired and managed my own money. And then 2008 came along, and I kind of got radicalized for sound money. And very much in the way Satoshi reacted to that event, I realized, I'm screwed. They're going to just print the shit out of this currency. And even though I've got money, it's not going to buy anything. And I thought we were going to go to hyperinflation right there, but of course we didn't. But, and so I pivoted at the time and I started learning about gold and gold mining stocks. I wasn't even aware of the white paper, although I'd been involved with Ron Paul, and I guess some people told me about it, and I didn't really focus on it. And in fact, I probably didn't pursue it because throughout, if you look at the etymology of Bitcoin for the past, prior to 2008, there were about 5 or 6 attempts to create digital online money. There was like e-gold, and none of them ever worked because they all, didn't have the technology, and the systems weren't right. And eventually they ran into a double spend problem, and then the currency became worthless. So, and I kind of, when I first heard about Bitcoin, I thought, well, that's just another one. This isn't going to work. The technology is not going to work. So I kind of ignored it. And I was investing in gold and gold miners from 08 to 9, 10, well, actually to present. And, when Bitcoin started to work, and, it was pennies, and then it went to dollars, and dollars is still not serious yet, but then it went to, $10 or $100. I started getting serious about it. I tried to get a Mt. Gox account, and fortunately I didn't, or I would have lost 80% of my coins. And I did, and I wasn't sophisticated enough to buy paper wallets, and which is kind of what you had to do pre Mt. Gox. You had to meet somebody who was mining it and buy it, buy a QR code for some money. And that was too early for me. So, but when there's a brokerage firm available, Mt. Gox, I thought, all right, this is interesting. I'll do that. Started filling out all the paperwork, didn't do it. Unfortunately, just as I was about to send the money, it failed. And then waited a little bit longer, and Coinbase went public in 2013, which is a big deal. And suddenly you had a legitimate U.S.-based venture capital-backed broker where you could buy Bitcoin. So I started buying it in 2013. And but I still didn't really understand it. I thought, it's still got a lot of technical risk. And if you talk to core developers, they'll admit that even back then it did have a lot of technical risk. I mean, there was no certainty. They had the forks and block wars and everything. There's so many things we went through, and there were a lot of back doors that got closed where, it could have died. It really could have died. And so many. You hear all these sad stories, these kids who were mining it, and they had 10,000 coins, and when it got to $2, they needed a car. So they sold their 10,000 coins and bought a car. It's just like, it's tragic, right? They should, it's like me selling my Microsoft, in 80s, in 1990, right? You see that tape of me, anyway. So, but I kept kind of studying it, learning about it. And then, of course, it broke, I bought it at 300, and then it broke to 1,000. This is getting real. Now I got to pay attention. So went down to MIT, and they had a club there, and I was living in Boston, and there were core developers there, and I was asking them about it, and even they were saying stuff like, well, yeah, we think it's good, it's probably going to work, and it's been kind of consistent, but to be frank with you, I always worry every time I do something or make a change, I always worry that I'm going to blow up the network. And I'm like, how can you put a lot of money in something where the smartest guys in the world who are building it aren't even sure about it yet? But, each block kept ticking along without problems. And so I kept accumulating it. And then when it really broke out from the 1,007 up to 17,000, Thanksgiving in 2017, I bought all along the way, chased it, and I bought it at 17,000. I was going to hundreds of thousands. And of course it didn't. But I started going to Bitcoin shows, and then it went down to 10, and I doubled down. It went down to 4, and I doubled down again. And because I just figured, well, in for a dime, in for a dollar. And just kind of sat there for a long time, and then, slowly but surely started buying it again as I got more and more knowledgeable with the technology. So, now I still have the gold stock fund that I manage, but I've got about 30% Bitcoin exposure if you count the companies plus we own some MicroStrategy. Plus the coins, but I still have gold stocks, which eventually I'll probably sell because, this really is superior to gold, and it's going to outperform it massively over time. So, and I've gotten very active on Twitter, and that's introduced me to a lot of the people that are kind of thought leaders in the space. So, Preston Pish and Jeff Booth, all these guys are friends, which is kind of cool. And I was just at Madeira at an event where Jack Dorsey was there, Jack Malish was there, and I was on the stage with Saylor, which was just, fucking intimidating as shit because the guy's about the smartest human being on the planet, And here's Lynn Alden, Saylor, and me, and there's a video of it on Twitter. You can go watch it. And I introduced myself as, I'm just pinching myself. I don't know what I'm doing here. It's like a club soccer player from Bedford, and I'm on the stage with Ronaldo and Messi. It's like, what the fuck? You didn't remember that one. It didn't. Yeah, well, thank you. I was terrified. I mean. And I don't know how many of you guys saw the videos. My wife said I did okay, but yeah. So anyway, it is what it is. I mean, as time has gone by, and I compared it to Microsoft, which I bought in '86 when it came public, and I mean, this really is the base layer of money, and I have every confidence that in 20, 30, 40 years, our kids will not talk about dollars; they'll talk about sats. And the SAT will be the base unit of that's how prices will get set. And so I think eventually we're going to a penny a SAT, which is $1 million a coin. But then I think we're eventually going to $1 a SAT, which is $100 million a coin. Now, in terms of real purchasing power, I mean, at the dollar a SAT, I mean, the equivalent gasoline might be $1,000 a gallon too. So because the government will have debased the currency. So you get kind of all these moving pieces. It almost becomes hard to tell, what's what. But I mean, I think Saylor's right in that this really is a better form of money. And, just as, the iPhone destroyed cameras and it destroyed, and there's a recent Saylor pod, which, you should look up. It's just, if you Google Saylor pods, you'll find the most recent one. He's talking to a kid from Australia. And he talked about how these digital things have just transformed the world. I mean, you used to have cameras. You don't have that anymore. You have an iPhone. I mean, you used to use, encyclopedias and libraries, and you don't have any of that more. You use Google. You just can Google whatever you want. You used to have your relationships in a phone book and call people and everything else, keep track of your now you just use Facebook, or Instagram. And it's just all, these technologies are just swallowing stuff, and this technology is just gonna swallow, the money, because the money is defective. Very clearly, what the government's done is bad, and we can all see it, and it's accelerating. The debt, we added $1 trillion of U.S. debt in 100 days. I mean, so we're adding 3 or 4 trillion a year, and that's accelerating to the debt, and interest costs of the U.S. debt are going parabolic, and sadly, the government just has no clue what they're doing, and it's only going to get worse. So.
At what point along your journey that you just told us about did you decide to start recommending Bitcoin to your clients?
Yeah, that was about 2018, and I lost some clients too who were mad at me and said, no, I invest in a gold fund. You can't do that. Like, fine, whatever. I mean, the others, I said, well, if I'd have said we're selling all this gold and buying Bitcoin, they would all fired me, right? So I couldn't do that. But what I did say was like, well, we're going to put 2% of the fund into Bitcoin. And when it was at $5,000, that 2% really grew, right? I mean, yeah. So, when it worked, they were kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I should pay attention. And I've been able to orange pill a lot of them. Some of them are kind of hopeless. They don't get it. I mean, it takes time to wrap your head around, the notion that you can have digital scarcity. And I mean, everyone in this room understands it, but, a lot of people, they get hung up on this tangibility thing. And, the story I tell them to try and deal with that is I say, before even gold existed, there are, prehistoric records of people sitting in caves making tally marks, which was really money. Somebody was keeping track. I killed this many deer. You killed that many. I owe you two. Yeah, somebody was keeping track of something. And so money really doesn't have to be physical gold. It turned out that was a good form of money for a bunch of years. But really money is just, you owe me something and I know it and you know it. It's a ledger. It doesn't have to be a physical thing. It happened to become a physical thing because over long distances, people couldn't always trust ledgers. And if you were Chinese and you were trading with the Italians, writing it down in a book and saying you're going to be honest to the book is like hard. But if if you have a gold coin, everyone knew what that was and said, okay, I'll give you, this amount of spices or this amount of that for these gold coins because we all know what they are. So
who's got questions for Larry?
Yeah.
This can be a conversation too.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
I've got a really boring question because it's tax season and every year they're digging deeper into what you own, what you sold, what what would you recommend as far as divulging, and how far can they get into cold wallet Bitcoin?
Well, Elizabeth Warren wants to prevent our ability to even be self-sovereign and have wallets, and that won't go through. There's no way. But they might do what I've said for a long time. I used to have a Swiss bank account. I don't anymore. The Swiss threw me out because the Americans got too aggressive. But when you had a Swiss bank account in the olden days, you had to file a form with this IRS thing or this Treasury Department thing in Detroit telling them you had it because they were trying to figure out if you're dodging taxes. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we know now you've got to tick a box on your 1040 that you dealt in crypto. So they've gone that far. It's not that far, and I think they'll be able to justify it where they'll be able to say, well, you got to tell us how much you got, and or where it is. Now, that's going to present all of us with a really interesting ethical dilemma as to whether or not we want to do that. Now, if you're, and this is the argument for self-sovereignty versus having your coins in a third-party solution. So, obviously, if you're at Coinbase or if you're at if you're in Fidelity, FBTC, or any kind of a U.S.-based financial institution, they're going to tell them what you got. They have to. When men with guns show up and say, "Hey, what's this guy's balance?" They're going to tell them. Now, if you've got 12 words and you got a Trezor address, and even though they can KYC it and they can see that you transferred it from River where you bought it, you're going to be able to say, "Yeah, you know what? I lost those words and I kind of forgot. I had a boating accident." I'm not in control of those coins anymore. I bartered them away. And to me, that's actually the reason that everybody needs to become self-sovereign. It's funny. There's this guy on Twitter who I hate him. He's an asshole named Joe Carlasari. And he thinks that they're going to that there's no way the government's going to do any of this bad shit. And I'm here to tell you, right? Yeah. I'm here to tell you, having been at this for 40 some odd years, the government's going to do all kinds of bad shit. And this is existential for them. If fiat fails, they're fucked. And they know they're fucked. And they change the rules casually. I was in 2008, my fund was short, and I was personally short Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, AMBAC, MBIA, all the AIG that insured Goldman Sachs, all the things that basically went to zero. Okay. And just Google it. In 2008, the SEC outlawed short selling in early September. And what they did was they forced me to cover, and everything I was short went up 50% in 2 weeks because I was forced into covering. So they stole millions of dollars of honestly earned bets. And, it was like GameStop, right? They changed the rules to fuck me. okay, and everyone else who was short. So anybody who thinks the government is not going to play dirty is being incredibly naive, in my opinion. And so this suggests to me that we all have to have lots of coins that, and I don't care if they're KYC or not. And by the way, that KYC problem is going to get solved. So we're investors with Ego Death, which is Jeff Booth's company. It's a venture capital firm. And Ego Death is supporting a company called Fedimint, Fedimint. Fedimint is going to create an a lightning-based mixer. Now, they're not going to call it that, but the fact of the matter is you're going to be able to send your coins into Fedimint, and they're going to be in there with everybody else's coins, and Fedimint's going to tell you how many coins you got. But they're never going to know. The wallet you're going to use is going to be like a Moon wallet. It's not going to be a KYC wallet. So they're not going to know who sent them in. They're not going to know when they come out. So and this is the beauty of it all. These technologists keep 10 steps in front of the government. So the government's going to say, where are your coins? Well, I don't have them anymore. So, as you can obviously tell, there's probably some CIA or IRS agent in here sitting in this room. But as you can obviously tell, the odds of me complying with something, if they say, how many coins you got, I'm going to tell them about the one that I have at Coinbase and the 2 that I have at River and, a couple others, just because I keep those there, as I like to say, because if somebody with a gun comes at me and says, I'm going to kill you unless you send me your coins, this is what the gold guys used to do is, you'd have 6 safes, right? And you had the safe that you could show, okay, yeah, you're right, you got me, because a thief just wants a quick hit, right? And, so what you want to do is just minimize the amount of your stack that they can get. So if somebody, says, hey, I'm holding your kid, I'm going to kill him unless you send me a coin, well, I'll send him a coin. And that won't, I wouldn't like that, but, it'd be better than sending them all my coins, And so you got to have your coins in a bunch of different buckets. But I think it's incredibly important as this thing goes along, because I think, at some point, a lot of people in DC are just dumb as fuck, but at some point, some of them are going to get smart enough to realize that this thing is destroying their system. And they're going to be like a cornered animal. And they, and I could see them doing it. I think the other thing is, I think they're going to use, and they did this in gold too. I think they're going to use volatility as one of their weapons. I think they're going to, like they could, for example, they could be on the buy side. When we're at 200, they could be on the buy side and shove it to 400 or 500, and we're all feeling great. $400,000 or $500,000 a coin I'm talking about, and we're all feeling great. But they bought a lot of them, okay? And then right at that 500 point, when we're way stretched, they come out with bang, bang, bang. We're going to try and tax Bitcoin highly. We're going to demand that you provide your addresses. We're going to, shut down these exit ramps. And they dump all the coins they bought into the market. And 500 goes to 150 in a month. And all the newbies who paid 3, 4, 5 are going to freak the fuck out, right? And because the only weapon they have left to fight us with is volatility. We're going to win. Volatility is the only tool they got left, which is why, everybody's got to decide, how rough you want to play the game. And can you handle, can you handle a drop, a 70% drop? Like at every point in the game, you've got to be asking yourself, could I handle a 70% drop? Would I get scared out of any coins? And if the answer is you might, and, I'm not saying I'll do this, but I think there's a strong argument for, just as an investment manager, just for trimming around the edges on big runs when you're way above the 200-day moving average. If it went to $500,000 a coin, would I sell 10%? Maybe. It wouldn't be crazy. But in general, because I believe these coins will, not that far out, I think there'll be 100,000 this year plus. I think there'll be 1 million within 3 years, and I think there'll be 10 million within 7 or 8 years. So in general, I don't want to sell anything ever, but I know the way the human mind works, and people will experience regret if we go to 500,000 a coin, you don't sell any, and it goes back down to 150. That's something that I think everyone has to be mentally prepared for, right?
That happens with anything.
Right. That's right.
One of the reasons that I do like the fact that the ETFs are in the market is this.
Yeah.
We're handing them, or to every sovereign government, the control of it. So the bigger it grows, the worse it is for us. So in a way, some way, in my head, I'm like, I don't want this to grow that much.
Well, but you do. I mean, you want more and more people.
Yeah, because the more it grows, the more the government wants to take control of it. And
Well,
all they have to do is,
yeah, I mean,
dollars. You want to change your Bitcoin for dollars? Well, you're going to have to, do a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think my view is that what we'd actually like to see is just continued compound solid growth without big spikes and drops. That would be the healthiest and the fairest, to allow as many people as possible to get on board, to not have it run ahead of itself, because like I say, the volatility is the only weapon they have left on the other.
Kept everybody out of it.
And that's what's kept everybody out of it. Exactly.
Well, today's a very good example. We lost 14%.
Right. Yeah, but what does that take it? That takes us back to where we were. What, 6 days ago? I mean, it's kind of like, But obviously, there's somebody who bought it at 69, right? Somebody bought that, and they're thinking to themselves, oh fuck, But I mean, this is where you've got to be. I mean, I bought some at 17 and it went to 10 and then it went to 4. Do you know what I mean?
63 right now. So
yeah, I mean, yeah.
So now you're a genius at 17.
Yeah.
Well, but the point is that you need to have a multi-year time frame, and we all know that. Everybody in this room knows that, but newbies don't know that. And I think it's important when you're orange pilling people to explain to them that they have to be prepared to have a 50% drawdown or 70% drawdown and not get shaken out. I mean, that's really, really important, because and to actually, view drawdowns as opportunities, not as a problem. And, the other thing that it argues for is dollar cost averaging, I mean, I was buying coins at the last 68 or 69, and it fell to, the FTX thing fell to 15. And, what I did was I said, I sold some more gold and found some more capital. And I said, all right, I don't know if 15 was the bottom or not, but I use Swan for a lot of these purchases because they have a really easy DCA program. And just every week I'd buy coins, and all those coins, obviously I bought at 15. I feel really good about right now. I mean,
in a normal bull market, which I think we're in, a 20-30% correction is normal and average, and is pretty healthy for this market. I mean, like you said, we're down, what, 12% today?
Yeah.
Now we're back. So do you think that's enough for this? This is enough of a correction?
I have no idea. I mean, I tend to think right now we're kind of into game on. It's game on world. I mean, I looking at the charts. I mean, there's a lot of support at 50. I mean, I don't think we're going there, but we could. And if we did, I'd view it as a gift. I mean, I think, I think if you look at, I mean, there's some great. You really all need to get on Twitter, because there's so much information. There's so many intelligent people doing a ton of work. You don't need to be very visible. You can create an anonymous account. You don't need to post. You don't need to do anything. You just need to get on there so that you're getting like world-class brains on this shit, giving you information for free. So it's like a no-brainer, to do it. Because I mean, you go to Checkmate. I mean, there's so many guys on there that do. And Fred Krueger's a guy who's just emerged. Anyone you guys seen his stuff recently? He's just emerged. He's tracking the ETF flows, and it's really. I mean, $8 billion has gone in since the ETF started, and the market cap has gone up $300 billion. And this is a function of the fact that 70% of the coins are in really strong hands. And so that's called the multiplier effect. So the multiplier is about 38 right now. And, again, step back for a minute, zoom back. There's $700 trillion of financial assets in the world. That's including kind of everything, real estate. Maybe call it 400 if you want to talk liquid stuff, because real estate's probably 300 of that. And this is a $1.3 trillion asset. So this is less than 0.4% of world financial assets, and it's the best form of money ever created, and it's destined to take over the world. So, it's kind of like, I mean, these to me, these little bips and stuff, these are noise. I mean, Kaiser thinks we're going to 200s on this run. Samson Mao thinks we're going to 1 million. I personally kind of think we're going to 400,000 or 500,000 after the halving. But then I don't discount the possibility. I mean, I have noticed, over time, the volatility has decreased. I mean, there were 90% drawdowns in the first one, and then they became kind of 80, and then they became 70, and I think the FTX one was like 76 or something. I think they're getting smaller.
Do you think there was a bunch of sell orders when it hit the?
There might have been. Yeah, that would make logical sense. That some people
went south.
Some people just wanted to get whole. I mean, I think, obviously there are futures and there are speculators in it, and there are people who are front running it, and so you're going to get, this is all very, very normal shit, and it's Bitcoin. I mean, it's extremely unpredictable. I mean, I think the odds that we go back to 15 are almost zero. But, could we easily, I mean, we could go back to 30. I kind of doubt that too. But just looking at the charts, I think it's likely, not likely. It's very possible that we could go to 50. I don't honestly see how, unless the ETFs, the demand at the ETF level slows down, and it has shown any signs of doing that. And this is, again, on Twitter, you can see these guys track it by the day, and ETF buying has actually been increasing every day since
2.6 billion.
Exactly. So, so as long as this new ETF money is flowing in, a big down would come from a change in, I mean, it's interesting. So here I am, I'm sitting in Madeira, I'm sitting with Preston and James Lavish and a few other guys. And remember when it kind of did that run where it's just going like, 60, 61, 62. I mean, we were having coffee and it went from 62 to 66 or something, right? And then suddenly Coinbase, my balance at Coinbase is zero, right?
Yeah.
Right? And they got Brian Armstrong to turn off the fucking computer, right? Yeah. And by the way, the next day, Barry Silbert, from Grayscale, dumped $600 billion worth, right? I mean, you think they don't have something on him and they didn't call him up and say, we need your help here, get rid of this shit, right? Of course they did. I mean, this is a rigged game. I mean, the people on the other side know what's going on. They know that we're playing for all the marbles in an existential fight to determine what sovereign money is. And they've got all the money in the world. And they've got control of the airwaves, and they've got control of the treasury, and they've got control of the rules. And, they'll buy the shit out of it, and they'll run it up. And then somebody somewhat credible will float, the Save American Currency Act, which suggests that there are people making a speculative raid on, the U.S. dollar. And as a result of that, we think all Bitcoin profits should be taxed at 75%. You see that happen. You want to see the fucking price fall? I mean, right? Even if there's no chance of that going through, right, that'll take 20% off the price in 2 days, right? And they can do that. They can get some stooge senator to make a lot of fucking noise and do that. I saw him do it in gold with Goldman Sachs and, all this kind of stuff. So you got to be prepared for the other side throwing sand in our face and fighting and all this other shit. That's the bad news. The good news is they're playing a losing hand. They're totally fucked. I mean, they're going to lose. They're going to completely lose because this is a better form of money. And over time, more and more people will come to see that and understand that. And the bid will always be there. And so, my view is you consider those drawdowns as times where you try and figure out, what was it Saylor said? You don't sell all your chairs, but you sell every chair that you don't need. And you use it to buy Bitcoin. Yeah.
See, do you think it would ever be like an asset tax on Bitcoin?
Oh, yeah. Well, they could do that too. I mean, they haven't, some of the liberals were talking about it. It wasn't AOC talking, and others, they were talking about trying to tax wealth.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't know that
well, I mean, they could probably.
Many wealthy people who don't want to be taxed. I'm not
right.
about that.
Well, I mean,
one
this would be a form of wealth that they could try to tax. I mean, one way to not create a tax liability is you don't sell it. I mean, if you don't sell it, there's no transaction, so they can't tax you. But, look, I don't know what they'll do. And And maybe I'm being too cautious and none of this stuff will happen and that'll be fine. Everybody, that'll be fine if they don't do any of this bad stuff. But I think there's, having watched how they behaved, I mean, look, in 2008, all the banks were bankrupt. Jamie Dimon should have been unemployed. Lloyd Blankfein, who's a billionaire, should have been thrown out of Goldman Sachs. All those guys. They all should be in jail. They ran a huge, enormous control fraud. The Big Short movie detailed it in great detail. And yet they all got bailed out and they got billions. They're all wealthy as shit as a result of a crooked system, right? And I mean, the GameStop guys, there were more shares short of, those of GameStop than there were shares outstanding. And so they if you watch Dumb Money, that movie is a fabulous movie. They should have been able to bankrupt Ken Griffin, and yet they changed the rules and they screwed those guys. The Hunts had the silver market cornered. They would have ruined the currency with the silver market, and they literally changed the rules. There was a guy who had the nickel market cornered, and they changed the rules on him too. I mean, this is not anything new. These people, they control the system, and they have the power, and they have the levers, and you have to assume that they're going to do stuff that's not in our best interest. But the flip of that is, we're just like ants. You know what I mean? There's so many of us. We just keep marching and chewing. You know what I mean? And we're going to get them because they just can't stop us. I mean, there's strength in numbers, and everybody's going to come to realize. I mean, the other thing is, to the degree they do all these things, there's kind of a Streisand effect. You guys know what that is, right? I mean, they raise awareness of the whole issue. It's like, well, gee, why is the government so afraid of Bitcoin? Well, because the government's bankrupt. So so they've got a real problem on their hands. And of course, some of them have joined us because they realize they're screwed. I mean, Larry Fink's not a stupid man, and he opposed it and hated it, and then he realized he could make money on it, and that we were right. And he flipped. And there'll be more of that. And, BlackRock's a big, powerful entity. I mean, Saylor made this point, and I think it was really well said, that among traditional finance people who manage millions and billions of dollars, they all said to themselves, yeah, I get it. The libertarian thing, I get it. They got it. They totally got it. They said, but the government's never going to let that thing happen. I mean, you guys are all just living in a fantasy. Well, then I mean, and I have to say, honestly, I was very skeptical that the ETFs would actually get done. The fact that, I don't know how it happened, but the fact that, I think it's because Fink and guys with money pushed it. The fact that the ETFs got done, that's a huge deal, because it basically said to the world, hey, look, the government says it's okay. And so look, the government can still change their mind in the future, and they might, and they will if they're deeply threatened. But, it was an endorsement of, this is a real legitimate investment. And, one thing is true about Wall Street. I mean, Kramer aside, they want to be in the winning stuff. They want to be in stuff that makes money. And, it's pretty hard to argue with the fact that, on a 5, 10, or 15-year basis, this is the best performing financial asset ever. So, okay, Mr. Financial. I mean, look at this Vanguard guy. I mean, I love it. The guy lost his job. Yeah. He blew the fucking call, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, the board, right onto the board, right? He says, oh, these things are bullshit. We're not going to do it. So one, he lost out on a big fee stream that he could have gotten if they'd done it. He would have got 20 bips or whatever the Vanguard. And two, we're not going to let our clients do it. And so a bunch of clients said, fuck you, I'm out of here. And so the board looked at it and said, hey, and then they got launched, and it was the most successful ETF launch ever in the history of the world. And the board said, you fucking idiot. You didn't get the revenue and you drove away clients. I don't give a shit that you went to Belmont Hill and Harvard College and Harvard Business School, and that you've been here 35 years and that you're a nice dressed preppy asshole. You're out of here. We're fucking firing you. I mean, now, and even, you can stay till the end of the year, but we're replacing you right here, right now. I mean, he got fired because he fucked up on Bitcoin. It's a thing of beauty. It's an absolute thing of beauty. Did you know him at Harvard? No, but I was at a macro conference where he was, and I just thought to myself, what a fucking weenie this guy is. I mean, he was such a fucking douchebag. I mean, just a weenie. And at that conference, I asked, we were talking about macro shit, and I asked, and I said, is there anybody around here that's kind of concerned about this sovereign debt crisis? And, because we're kind of bankrupt, and it's becoming pretty obvious that we're bankrupt. And I mean, they didn't, and they kind of shuffled around a little bit. So kind of next question. I mean, it was like I dropped a turd in the punch bowl. It was really fabulous. You know what I mean? And I mean, I had standing. I could be there. I went to Harvard Business School. I graduated with distinction. The whole shit. I've given them plenty of money, and I was allowed to ask this question. But I mean, I could see they're all just like, oh shit, where's this guy coming from, right? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. These people the wrong people have gotten rich, right? The fiat masters have gotten filthy fucking rich by playing a rigged game. And this is what's incumbent upon us. I mean, the other thing I encourage you to go to Google Madeira Bitcoin Conference, Bitcoin Atlantis, Madeira.
I saw it yesterday.
Yeah. So they're 3 days. The speeches you gotta see. The most important speech is Saylor. Saylor was 2 p.m. on the first day. It's 8 hours. I was at the end. I was at 8 hours. I was on a panel with Saylor. I was at 8 hours. It's on YouTube.
Day 1, hour 8.
Day 1, hour 8 is my panel, which was good. But day 1 at 2 p.m. So I don't know. It's probably like hour 6. You can find it. You got to listen to what Saylor said.
Yes.
And he did a really, really good job of, kind of laying out just the case for it and how it's incumbent upon all of us. I mean, we look at our neighbors in this country tearing itself apart with blue-red bullshit when the real issue is this. It's orange. You're either orange or you're not. And, I mean, all that other shit, both parties suck. And this is and by the way, and voting doesn't count because they fucking rigged the votes anyway. But here you get to vote with your feet and vote with your money. And if we take all their money away from them because this thing goes on a Gresham's Law tear to $1 million, their shit's going to collapse. And Saylor's going to run for president. And he is. I'm pretty sure he is. And I'm pretty sure he is. And he's going to be the richest, and he's going to be the richest man in the world. And he's a fucking lovely human being. He's honest. He's kind. He's smart as shit. And, I mean, you want to talk about a leader who could make America great again. I mean, this is the guy, right? I mean, he's a little wonky. He kind of goes into engineering shit. He'll need to get polished a little bit, but I'm telling you, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. So
that's why he's good. He's an engineer.
Yeah, right. Well, he is. He's so fucking smart. He knows all the facts. He puts everything in engineering too. So I'm backstage with him after we did our thing, and we were talking about Kramer. We're talking about all the people who are skeptics, Peter Schiff and all this shit. And he goes, Larry, he said, I see this in aeronautical terms. I said, what do you mean? He said, of course he does, right? Because he's an aeronautical engineer, right? He says, think about the sound barrier. He said, you understand. I said, yeah, Chuck Yeager broke it. He said, well, it's like that. I mean, until you're going 630, he knew the exact speed. I don't know what it is. Until you're going that thing, your sound is keeping up with you. And then you go through that, and what happens is the sound can't keep up with the speed the plane is traveling, which is why you have a boom, and then it becomes very silent thereafter. And if you watch the movie The Right Stuff, they were very afraid. They didn't know what would happen when they broke the sound barrier. They thought maybe the plane would blow up. They had no fucking clue, right? And he said, think of this in those terms. He said, this is money which is breaking the sound barrier. It's like an entirely new fucking experience that nobody really knows how to deal with. And, we don't know the implications of it. I mean, it's similar. I mean, they call it printing press. I mean, imagine when some guy, this is 100 million years ago, imagine when somebody figured out fire, right? Imagine like there was life before fire, and then somebody figured out, and you fucking spark some shit together and you get fire. I mean, it's like it's that kind of fundamental stuff. I mean, there's never been a limited supply of anything in the world, commodity-wise. Any commodity, one second, I'll come to you. Any commodity that you had, if you increase the price of it, the supply of it would go up. Anything. Gold, food, air, anything. The higher price would create more. This is a commodity where higher price doesn't matter. The supply is programmatically set. And so that's how he gets to it's going up forever, Laura. because it is. Isn't that the greatest line? I love it. I mean, it's going up forever. Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding supply and demand,
Yeah.
As the halving happens,
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
and the ETFs demand and just keep going up. What happens? Like, how do you manage that? I mean, there's going to be more demand.
Well, no, you manage it with price, right? I mean, it's like people say there's not enough gold in the world to go around. Sure there is. You just make it high enough price and you divide it up a lot of times. I mean, yeah, so he made an interesting point. He said, I didn't know this until he said it. We go through a bunch more halvings. In 2034, he said, we live in, you saw it, right? We live in the golden period of Bitcoin, the gold rush period, because in the next 10 years, all but 1% of the Bitcoin is going to be fully mined. So 99% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist will be out there by 2034. And then that last 1% is going to take another 100 years to get mined. So effectively at that point, stock to flow becomes almost infinite, right? Because there's really almost zero flow. Because the reward gets cut in half. It asymptotically gets cut in half every 4 years. So in other words,
gradually goes.
Yeah, the block reward right now the block reward is 6.25 coins per block every 10 minutes. In sometime in April, I've heard, maybe other people, anyone know? I've heard April 16th is the date they're thinking it's going to happen.
For the halvings.
Yeah, the next. I mean, it kind of depends a little on difficulty and speed and the 10th, whatever. But that next halving's coming. At that point, it'll be 3.125.
What's that going to do to this?
Well, it's if you look at historically in the halvings, it's generally what's led to an enormous ramp.
I know.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
we've done this enormous.
Well, yeah, but I think we can go, so I think the last cycle was truncated by two things: the failure of the closing of the mining in China, and the failure of FTX.
You can manipulate that time period.
What do you mean?
Scale with Moore's law, right? Technology, innovation.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
It's difficulty adjusts.
It's
let's say 10,000 more miners, and the blocks go quicker. Once that 2,000 block, it'll adjust for that.
Yeah, no, this is the issuance. I mean, plus or minus a little bit, but the issuance every 2 weeks they reset the difficulty. So I mean, that's the other thing. I just read today that the hash is up to like 6.6 exahash. I mean, 616 exahash. That's crazy. I mean, and by the way, the mining business I think is a really tough business. I mean, I've invested in it. We've looked at it. It's a shitty business. I mean, and I think sovereigns are mining it. I went to Satoshi's roundtable in Dubai. I mean, there were all these sheiks there, in their traditional garb, and I mean, tell me they're not buying it. I mean, they got billions of dollars. They're on the bid. I mean, no, in Dubai.
Oh, in Dubai.
Yeah.
Is it balloon there?
They're buying more than Jamie Dimon.
Oh, well, that's you're buying more than Jamie Dimon. I'm buying more than Jamie Dimon. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think about all these managers with the creation of ETFs?
Yeah.
All these managers buying all these bitcoins, and what would stop them to do the same thing what they do with gold? Put the price of gold should be much higher.
Of course, yeah. Well,
accumulating, and the price is not moving.
Well, and they seize it, and then because they're being held in custody with ETFs, you have no choice but to hand the Bitcoin over and get pennies on the dollar.
Well, that's right. I mean, they could do a force majeure and grab all that stuff, and that's why you want a self-custody, but like a 6102. But to answer you, is Bitcoin going to be manipulated the way gold is manipulated? That's a complicated question. There are people who are on both sides. The real purists say, oh, no, it's all on the blockchain. We know where it is. There's no way they can manipulate it like that. That's naive and that's wrong, because there are futures and derivatives markets in this. And as long as there are futures and derivatives markets, that creates, and they trade. I mean, there's some people, and there are people who are stupid enough to accept a derivatives contract or a futures contract as opposed to having their own keys and their own coins. Not your keys, not your coins. But they're real, and they at the margin they impact the price. I mean, FTX impacted the price. Sam Bankman-Fried sold Bitcoin to a bunch of his customers and didn't buy the underlying coins. That reduced the demand for the underlying coins. He had paper Bitcoin obligation on his balance sheet to people. And if the price went up, he was going to pay them back, but he didn't actually have the coins. That's what happened with a gold ETF. Okay. And the gold market, this is a very complicated and long topic, but suffice it to say, gold has been horribly manipulated. And obviously, it was done because they recognized that gold was a threat to fiat currencies. Okay. And, there's so much evidence of it. It's crazy. I mean, a perfect example is Paul Volcker in 1980. His memoirs about the 70s and 80s when he said one of the mistakes we made is we didn't manipulate gold enough. So it's kind of like meaning you did manipulate it, you just didn't keep it from going to 800, right? So there's no doubt they've done it, and it's a long story. But with Bitcoin, it's a little harder. I mean, gold has never gone up 5x in 18 months. And one of the ways they did manipulate it in gold was they did things through the Cayman Islands and the BIS and all the investors. I think the gold guys have found executive orders, which have to get published after the president's been out of office or a certain amount of time, that have basically said that the government can do whatever it needs to do to maintain the security of the financial system. And what that means is they effectively had accounts in the Cayman Islands, because in 2013, when they did the attack on gold that took it from gold, by the way, was creating a little bit of a Gresham's Law and a little bit of a failure of fiat, because it went from 250 in 2000 to 1900 in 2013. And Goldman Sachs, it was amazing timing. Goldman Sachs came out and said, gold's overvalued. We think you should short it. And soon thereafter, flows started coming out of the Cayman Islands into all the gold pits, and all the gold guys could see it and knew it, of billions of dollars of gold sales. There was nobody who had that much gold to sell. Those billions of dollars of gold sales had to be driven by sovereigns and central banks and the BIS. And what they did was they'd enter the trade knowing that if they lost, the governments have control of the printing press, and they would just print the money to cover the loss. And they were successful, and they took the price of gold from 1900 back down to 1,000, got everything under control again. So they have a lot of power. Now, could they do that with Bitcoin? Yeah, possibly. But that occurred in 2013, and they've been manipulating gold since 1971. So they had a lot of time to put all the pipes and all the programs in place and to manipulate gold. And gold had only gone up 5, 6, 7x over the course of 13 years. I mean, Bitcoin's gone up 5x in 18 months, right? So you can see the addresses. And by the way, in the gold ETF, there was a lot of language that said they had the ability to use futures, they had the ability to use derivatives, they had the ability to use counterparties. So they could buy paper gold from Lehman Brothers, knowing that if Lehman went bankrupt, they would just cash everybody out with dollars and not deliver the gold that wasn't there. And we think there's about 100 ounces or 1,000 ounces of gold claims for every real ounce of gold in the world. If you do the math and you look at the monetary base in pre-71, the U.S. has 261 million ounces of gold. If you looked at the monetary base and divided the two back then you actually come up somewhat close to the Bretton Woods reference price of $35, which is where it was when Nixon took us off the gold standard. If you did that same math today, if you took the monetary base today divided by the $261 million, gold should be $80,000 an ounce. It's trading at $2,000 an ounce. So what that tells you is that's the amount of money they created over. I mean, they effectively completely killed and demonetized gold. And by the way, they will probably want to do that here, but it's not going to be as easy for them because of the blockchain and the system and so forth. But it's not outside of the realm of possibility, because they can and probably will create these accounts, and they can and probably will get more involved in paper Bitcoin. Right? Go ahead.
So I see you follow gold, okay?
Yeah.
I'm also following gold.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark Bristol.
Sure.
He had an interview with Kitco.
Yeah, I know.
And he said in the interview, that cryptocurrency allowed us to create something that will let everybody in the world own it. So gold-backed crypto tokens. And there is some companies working on it. So how many coins you can buy? full trunk of gold coins, but here you're going to have crypto token that you can go with the wallet anywhere in the world and pay with this. And there is a company that's working on it.
Kinesis, right? Yeah. There are others, yeah.
And it's heavily shorted. Like kind of like they want to destroy the company.
Yeah.
It's like a 10 billion shares shorted. Okay? So I have a feeling that the government be behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized I follow you on the Twitter.
Okay.
Want to fix the world.
Yeah.
But I also follow Najib Bukali. And he's a great guy now because, look, everybody was laughing when he was buying Bitcoin. Now he's standing on top of the world.
Who's this now?
Najib Bukali, El Salvador president.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, Bukele, yeah. I love El Salvador.
So
yeah.
Listen, American people should know that your government want to destroy my country.
Yeah.
They want to install communist government.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're not going this way.
Yeah.
Okay? And from a shittiest country in the world, you became safest country in the world.
Yeah.
30,000 criminals in the jail.
No.
More than whole year.
Yeah, no.
America wants to destroy him because he made Bitcoin national currency.
Right. Oh,
But also, they created Chivo Wallet.
Mm-hmm.
People are unhappy over there with Chivo Wallet because the government has control of the wallet. They know what is spending money. There was corruption. There was a company I know that's working on a wallet, and you're going to be able to buy crypto token, which is backed by 1/10 gram of gold for $6. And they're planning to work with El Salvador. And a lot of stuff is happening in that direction.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about this having gold and gold tokens. To me, there's no point in doing that. You either have physical gold because you have physical gold and you can exchange it. It's analog sound money, or you have Bitcoin.
But
right? Yeah.
If you have physical gold,
yeah.
Let's say you have to leave the country.
Well, that's the problem. That's why Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin is the future.
Bitcoin. Just have Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
Digital tokens. I just bought those tokens yesterday.
Yeah.
With Algorand. Algorand, 25 cents. You want to have a 10 bagger?
Yeah. See it. Basically everything that's not Bitcoin, in my view, is a shitcoin.
I understand.
You shouldn't touch any of that fucking shit. You should just stay.
What's going to happen?
You should stay the fuck away from it, because if it's not based on proof of work, you're going to get fucked. That's just a fact. I mean, I wouldn't touch any of that shit. If you're buying anything that's not Bitcoin, good luck. I don't touch it.
Isn't Bitcoin got a real advantage too? Because like 70% of it is small accounts of hodlers that is going to be really hard to get to and move.
Well, yeah, I mean,
percent that's left.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the multiplier is so big, and that's why I don't think anybody in this room fully understands, including me, how likely it is and how scary it's going to be when Bitcoin goes to $1 million really quickly. I mean, it's going to be like, what the fuck? I mean, this monetary system is failing. So, I mean, let me give you an example that I think is a good analog to that. So the Silicon Valley Bank was a very well-known, successful bank in Silicon Valley. And in March of 2023, they had to sell some bonds because they needed some liquidity. And 8 days later, the bank was gone, okay? But the way it happened is they sold those bonds and they reported it, and somebody did the math and said, oh, they had to sell these bonds at a discount. And if we apply that to the rest of the bank, this bank is clearly bankrupt. They've got a $20 billion negative equity hole. And then that person talked to another person, and they all talked to the well-known venture capitalists who had their money deposited there, and they all sent out emails around. And basically, you had a digital bank run that occurred in the space of 6 days. And one day, $45 billion, which was over almost half. They had $100 billion of deposits. They lost $45 billion in one day. And a day later, it was bankrupt. It was like poof. It was just like, it was one, it's like, but that was a priceless Steinway. Not anymore. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it just fucking dissolved. And so, what happens, I mean, and this is, Jim Rickards' ICE7 thing, but I could see it. It's not impossible. What happens when Bitcoin goes to $1 million a coin and there are no sellers? And then it goes to $1.5 million. And then everybody starts to realize, holy shit, the currency is worthless. And so everybody who's got money is like, buying houses and buying cars. And, you're just thinking, if I got any money anywhere, I got to use it to buy something real before, and the price of everything's going up.
And the banks may freeze your money right then.
And banks are failing, and the banks are freezing your money. And by the way, the government's panicking, thinking, holy shit, we're losing control of this monetary system. Okay. Bitcoin is now illegal. 10 years in jail and 100%, 90% tax if you transact in Bitcoin, right? And this is the Save America legislation. We've got a national crisis taking place here as a result of our currency failing. We need to take these actions to, for the benefit and the safety of our country.
Nigeria,
right?
They're doing that right now.
Are they? Yeah.
They're getting all the exchanges.
I mean, right? I mean, otherwise, or are they going to sit there and let the currency actually become worthless? I mean, it's, they'll be desperate and they will do desperate shit, right? I mean, and, gold will be $10,000 an ounce, but good luck finding somebody who'll sell you any, because anyone who owns it will say, well, shit, it's going to 100. Why should I sell you for 10? I mean, just as, once the Silicon Valley thing, once it in everybody's mind, everyone realized Silicon Valley is bankrupt. There was literally no bid for Silicon Valley stock. None. Zero. It went, it just went, it was like, 10,000 days of a Thanksgiving Day turkey. It's all good. And then Thanksgiving Day comes and whop, your life's over. You're fucked. And that is what could happen. I mean, that's how a currency fails. That's what happened in Weimar, Germany. All it needs to have that happen, and people say I'm being a doomer or extreme for saying it, but I'm just telling you what's happened historically. All it needs for that to happen is for a quorum of the people to realize that the currency is about to become worthless. And then you're all in a theater, there's a fire, there's an exit, and everybody wants out at the exit at the exact same time. That's what we're talking about here. Or it's like the avalanche where the final snowflake comes and it's rolling and, you can't get out of the way fast enough. You're either there or you're not there. And so, I honestly think, and I mean, to me, and that's going to be a horrible experience for the world, for a lot of people, for everything else. And yet, out of that is going to come a really great future, because the people who will have benefited from that are Bitcoiners who, by definition, are much more honest and forward thinking than most of the people in the country. And we're gonna rebuild the system, on a sound money standard. I mean, the one thing that has happened when you've had hyperinflations in places, they always inevitably go to a sound money. They have to. They know that what ruined it was the unsound money. So Germany, they went to gold standard, right? They started with land, then they quickly went to gold. And you rebuild. You just rebuild. I mean, unless there's a shooting war, everything's still there. It's just that everyone who had paper wealth, it's gone. Yeah.
Can you go from like where we are now with the steps to get to where you're talking about?
Yeah.
Soft landing.
Yeah. Well, I wish there would be it would be nice if there was a soft landing, and it's a possible outcome that we'll have a really high rate of inflation and we'll have political change, and somebody will say, let's go to a Bitcoin standard. We'll do it before we have hyperinflation. But if you were looking for kind of the time frame, my belief is we're in a fourth turning, which is defined as a crisis of an existing system which is broken, which needs to get fixed. This fourth turning started in 2008. If you look at historical fourth turnings, they last between 10 and 30 years. So if it's 10 years up, 2018, no, it's not over yet. 2028 will be 20 years. Could be over by then, kind of unlikely. I kind of think this will happen in the 2030 timeframe, but I could be wrong. The thing that sometimes makes me think I'm wrong is that the speed with which Silicon Valley Bank failed and the speed with which social media and contagion is capable of happening in the world today, right? Something happens in the world today, everybody knows about it instantly. So imagine, I mean, and the pricing will do it. It's if we see a run for the exits on these assets, and I think to me it's like contraction. It's like giving birth in contraction. 08 was one fine, 20 was one fine, The next one will be pretty serious, probably up to 300,000 or 400,000, but they'll put it back in the can. It'll come down again. It'll be fine. But then probably the next one, probably the one after that, when Bitcoin's 400, Bitcoin goes to 400, corrects to 200. But the one after that, the government will be printing money. We'll be doing stimmies. We'll be buying our own bonds. And eventually the bond market's just going to say no mas. And everyone's going to look at it and go, this government just can't ever stop. The U.S. government's just printing so friggin' much money. And, Bitcoin will go through 400, then it'll go through 800, then it'll go through 1.2 million, then it'll go through 2 million. And smart people will know what's happening. Will say, holy shit, this is it. And everyone else will wonder what's happening. And the government may or may not be able to stop it. But, Bitcoin will go from 2 to 6 million and that'll be that. And the dollar, what's the dollar worth, Okay.
I think it's going to happen much faster, okay?
Maybe.
Because not that I'm a Putin puppet, okay?
Yeah.
But Russia, they know that we destroy their pipeline.
Absolutely.
Okay, and they have no chance winning with us militarily.
Yeah.
They're going to destroy us financially with bricks.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna destroy ourselves financially. They're just watching.
Bricks now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Once they're going to come out with gold-backed currency or commodities-backed currencies,
yep.
The dollar's going to come back here. And you think we have inflation 6%, we're going to have 100, 300% inflation.
Yep. No, that's right. To answer your question, the signs are, inflation's coming back. Okay, this is a lull in inflation right now. 3 is probably the lowest we'll ever see. The next, it'll be like the 70s. The next run will take us to 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't know what they'll do then. I don't know if they'll try and raise rates again. They might. And it could be. It's feeling more and more to me because the stock market keeps going up. It's feeling more and more to me like a crack up boom, which is to say, they'd rather die through growth and inflation than trying to. It's funny because Powell thought he could be Volcker and push rates up high enough but if he does that, he's going to collapse the world. And the world's too over levered. That horse is bolted out of the barn. They can't do that now. So they're going to have, in my opinion, they're going to have really high inflation, and it'll be hard. It's going to be very hard to know the path, but I think that having things. The first and most fundamental principle is you want to own assets that the government can't print, right? So real estate. The problem there is that they can tax it. You can't move it. You may not want to be an American citizen in the way America looks in 10 years, right? I know I may not. If they decide they want to tax my Bitcoin at 90% and make me report it and threaten to throw me in jail, I'm going to learn Italian. Yeah. The food is good. The people seem friendly. So go ahead.
So you were at the event, the Atlantis event this weekend, and there's been a lot of talk about that Qatari plane.
The which one?
The Qataris. The Qatar.
Yeah. So
was there, the talk is about nation states.
Yeah. I think surreptitiously nation states are mining it, and I think they're accumulating it. I think, it's interesting. You know who Jason Lowery is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the MIT guy who wrote for the Pentagon a strategic paper and a book about Bitcoin and Bitcoin as a sovereign weapon. Yeah, and those, I've got one of the books. Those books are listed for $5,000 on eBay because they made them stop printing them. Yeah, they're only and what they realized is that holy shit, we shouldn't. This is the playbook for how to win sovereignly. We don't want people all over the world to have this. I'm pretty sure the Russians are mining it, and that's because the mining guys know where the hash is coming from, and there's a lot of hash in Russia. And it's not private. We think it's the Russian gas companies and stuff are doing it. I'm pretty sure the Qataris and the UAE, those guys are probably either mining it and or buying it.
Saudis are in a joint venture with Marathon.
Right. We're here's the thing, folks. You don't realize just how few Bitcoin there are and how much other forms of wealth there are. And it just at the margin, eventually all that other form of wealth has to come into Bitcoin, but it doesn't even, we don't need that for it to work for us. It's just, just slow and steady, and we'll be at 100, then 200, then 400, then 1 million. Then, it's, if we went to a full Bitcoin standard, Bitcoin, compared to all the wealth today, Bitcoin should be $100 million a coin. That's pretty fucking crazy, right? I mean, in today's purchasing power. Yeah, go ahead.
And then one more, Mr. 100.
What's that?
So what was the conversation, rumors at that event about?
Oh, yeah. We don't know who that is. I mean, but that, somebody actually suggested this to me, and I think it's possible. That could be the U.S. government, right?
Mr. 100, tell us.
There's a guy. There's an address that's buying probably the details more than I do. There's an address that's buying 100 coins like almost every hour, aren't they?
Since November 22.
What?
$3.5 billion in coins. They're like I think 50th biggest wallet, or
they just bang it constantly. Like
1,600 Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's some address that everyone's watching that just keeps adding coins constantly, and I mean that could be a sovereign wealth fund in the Middle East. That could be a billionaire. I mean, we speculated. I wanted to ask him, but I figured it'd be too forward. We speculated that Saylor has orange pilled Bezos because they're friends. Because well, that's the thing. Bezos just sold $4 billion worth of Amazon stock, right? I mean, right. I mean, and Saylor went to his birthday party and their buddies. I mean, and Saylor's a very persuasive guy. I mean, it's hard for me to, that sounds credible to me, right? But I actually, one guy said, and I think this is possible. What if those coins, what if that's the U.S. government or the Federal Reserve or the Treasury or the BIS thinking to themselves, we got to have a big supply of these so that when when it gets ahead of us and it looks like we're losing control of the system, we can go, okay, bang, 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 legislation and, just just dump them, bang, bang, and I mean, in other words, we'll be ready to do a prepared attack. So, I mean, I didn't discuss it with him. I think Saylor, it's funny, Saylor, those of us like Kaiser, myself and others, and look, I think Saylor knows where this is going, that ultimately the dollar is going to die completely and ultimately, and he's very much, I think he realizes the politics of it all, and he doesn't want to talk about that shit. And you know what I'm saying? He's very smart. He wants to leave himself a way to maybe be a political leader. And so talking about hyperinflation and the death of the dollar, I think, and Booth is this way too, and Booth's a friend. I mean, they're both like, it doesn't serve our interest to go there. And I talk about it just because I'm an analyst. It's just so fucking obvious to me that that's what's going to happen. And that I think people only understand it sometimes when they think about that extreme case. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Inflation is a funny thing because if you're a small country, you should fear inflation.
Yeah.
But if you're the country that issues...
That can print the money. Oh, yeah.
That controls 100% of the trade in the world.
Yeah.
You can just don't worry about inflation. It's nothing.
Well,
however, what's happening today, and as much as I dislike Biden, he's done everything in favor of Bitcoin. Everything to increase inflation.
I'm sorry.
Everything he's done.
Oh, yeah.
Is to increase inflation. To go to war.
Yep.
He just pushed all those guys
together
and then start trading.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, look, the U.S. is like, grabbing the Russian reserves, blowing up the pipeline. I mean, the stupid shit we've done is just, it's criminal and unbelievable. It's as if they want to destroy things. And there are some people who think that's what's going on. But, right. But I think, and that may be the case. I mean, I can't see inside their heads, but I think that the long and the short of it is that, what they really do is just what's expedient. They want to maintain, they want to hang on to power, and so they do what they need to do to increase the odds that they can do that. And that, that's why they at the end of the day, they will always print versus letting the thing collapse. It's a broken system. Yeah, go ahead.
In this room, do you think the Ethereum have its ETF, and do you think that will limit the amount of money going into Bitcoin ETF?
I don't really care. I mean, if it, I think they might approve an Ethereum. They shouldn't. It doesn't pass the Howey test, but they might. I mean, and I hate shit coins, but I accept the fact that there are people building applications on Ethereum that would probably be a good layer 3 on Bitcoin. I mean, the problem with Ethereum is that the underlying monetary policy is flawed. They just keep changing it, and it's you got how much gas you got to burn. I mean, it's stupid.
It'll break the whole thing.
Yeah. So, but I understand how and why people are involved in it, and I understand that. I mean, to criticize the Bitcoin side for a moment. I mean, I've been disappointed at how slow and the development of Lightning has been. I mean, Jack Mallers promised us 2 years ago we'd be doing Lightning transactions everywhere, and that's not happening. And some Lightning wallets aren't comparable with other Lightning wallets. And Fediment promised us as investors that they'd have their product out, they'd have their solution out by now, and they're still trying to work out the bugs. Now I get it; it's got to be bug free, it's got to be absolutely perfect, and so measure twice, cut once. But it's kind of like, I mean, to me, this is still the internet in 1994 or 5. I mean, we don't have Netscape. We don't have, we certainly don't have Amazon or, I mean, we've got there's a lot of work that has to go on. I mean, right now, this is still a niche store of value play on, the currency being debased, period. It's not a payment rail at all. Not even close. And so, there's a lot of work that's got to be done, but as with all things, it will get done. Particularly, if the rewards are there. I mean, when we're at $250 a coin, and there's more money in the space, well, that it'll attract the talent to get the work done. So,
I think Bitcoin needs to. I mean, the wallet management is very important for Bitcoin,
right?
Because the other coins, you just manage your account as if you were in the bank.
Exactly.
It's based on accounts. Yeah. But the wallet management in Bitcoin is very difficult.
Yeah. Well, BIP39 helped. BIP39 helped a lot. Yes. And there are some tools. I mean, the Trezor's good, Ledger's not. Cold Card's good, but you're right. I mean, my mother certainly couldn't do it, and it's got to be idiot proof, and it's not. It's not even close.
Yeah, and people, anyways, will never understand Bitcoin.
Well, I disagree with that. I think more and more people are coming to understand it. I think it,
more, but still.
Yeah.
Newer generation will understand. The old ones, they still want to have a passbook with a bank account.
Yeah,
you don't really have to understand it.
I'm old.
Yeah, me too.
You don't have to understand Bitcoin to benefit from it. Do you understand the internet? Can you tell me
that's the wrong way to do it.
Can you tell me the technical aspects of how the internet works?
That's the wrong way.
Bitcoin is money, and that's all you need to know.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sure.
So all these years of listening to all these people buying tons and tons of Bitcoin.
Right.
And it feels to me, because they're so scarce, that the supply is becoming so concentrated in the hands of so few. And that gives me anxiety. And I see that as, well, how does that bode positive? Bitcoin, to have all these people hoarding it and not selling it. And then how does that then work for the regular person?
Well, yeah, it's, there is concentration, no doubt, but there's also a lot of, I mean, if you think of it in terms of Satoshis, there are a lot of Satoshis out there. And so, and by the way, I mean, these guys with tons and tons of Bitcoin are they're going to sell some, they're going to peel some off. I mean, Max Kaiser probably has, 10,000, 20,000 coins. I mean, I heard him talking once where he said, yeah, I think I'd like to own a chateau in France. You know what I mean? And so, he's going to peel off $20 million worth of coins and buy a chateau in France. Well, those coins will be now in the general circulation, and they weren't before, and so, I mean, you see more and more coins getting distributed around, and there are always coins on exchange. I mean, the one thing Saylor said in the conversation I had with him is there are going to be a lot of people and this is where you really got to start thinking about who are going to make the mistake I made with Microsoft, which is to say they're going to buy it cheap. They're going to buy it now, or they're going to buy it at 30,000, 50,000, whatever. It's going to go up 4x. Okay, so you're feeling pretty good. This is probably the best investment you've ever made. You bought one coin for 50 and it's now worth 200. So you're thinking this is really great, and you're going to sell it, thinking it's going to come back down, or I need something, or whatever it is, and then it's going to go to 300, and you're never going to get back in, so it's because it is consistently going to just ramp higher forever, and so look, I will sell some if I need, being 85 years old and having a bunch of Bitcoin and having an enormous net worth and having sold zero, that's not going to happen to me, because I know along the way my wife is going to demand that we take some really nice vacations. and yeah, right. No, when I'm 85, and we're gonna try, and she's gonna want a bigger house down here, which is really fucking expensive. And
so Michael Saylor says he's just going to borrow against his Bitcoins on
right. But again, remember, it's just the base layer, and everything's denominated in Bitcoin. I mean, there are stable coins. There are, all we're talking about. There will always be enough to go around based on the right price, and that's why it's going to go up forever, and that's why someday, someday you'll look back. Think of the guy who sold 40,000 coins for 2 pizzas, right? Right? Think of it. That was the first transaction. I met the Papa John's guy at one of the shows way back.
What did he do with it?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'm pretty sure he sold it.
He's a type.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it probably went up. There are a lot of people. I have some really salty friends who owned hundreds of coins, and actually did the right thing. They bought them maybe when they were at 50, but they got to 400 and they thought, fuck, this is unbelievable. And they sold them.
They needed a boat.
Yeah. Right.
Coins out there.
Well, yeah. That's another interesting question. There aren't really even 21 million of them, right? There's a lot of debate about this, but it's got to be 5%, and it might be as high as 20 or 30%. The stories I hear about in the early days when Silk Road was going, and there were people who were, think about it, when it's 3 cents. Max Kaiser was handing out addresses that had 100 coins on them, but they were only 10 cents a coin at the time. There were probably people he gave that address to, and people said, fuck it. And they just threw the thing away.
10,000 hours, Joe.
What? Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. So the point.
Coins.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember somebody saying, there was a time in the early days. This was like when they were a nickel or a dime. There were places you could go and you could get 100 coins, for like free or for a few bucks. It was just like incredible. Yeah, it was just, and so remember at that time nobody thought that there was any real value to it, and so there were a lot of people who got it, didn't pay attention. There's a guy in England who was trying to dig up a dump so he could find his old computer because because he had like $40 million worth of coins on his computer and he threw it away. It was in some landfill and he was trying to find it. It's just there's a lot of that. Yeah, right. Can you imagine? Yeah.
The number of sats that there will be to answer the question, which is somehow to answer. The sats of the 21 million coins is about 1 quadrillion.
I know, but they still belong to those Bitcoins that are being
held. If 1 sat is $1, can you imagine the supply? There's going to be enough for everybody.
Well, and eventually people will. If it goes on long enough, and the things, there will be things that are sold for 1/10 of a sat. Do you know what I mean? You can infinitely divide any unit as many times as you want. And it's all just in the computer as units. So yeah, it's a power law, right? I heard an interesting story. Trace Meyer was a real OG. I don't anyone recognize that name. He was a gold guy. But when Kaiser started buying at 30 cents a coin, and he thought he was late because Trace had bought all his coins at 10 cents. Can you imagine? Right? And isn't that amazing? I mean, just think of it. So it's really all kind of relative. I mean, I met an OG at Atlantis who from Quebec, pretty cool guy. He was mining it himself on his own computer, and he was buying. And he's, he said my average cost is about $2 a coin.
Oh.
Now he lives on Malta, has a castle in Spain, and races cars. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, awesome. He's living his best life, right? But the point is, those coins. I mean, he's spent a bunch of coins. He must have. He can't have that lifestyle without having let a lot of coins go.
As the price goes up, the people who have wealth, they want to spend it. They want to experience life. And so they spend their money on things that are valuable to them, and or they build businesses, right? And so they pay their employees in Bitcoin, and then that, just like the dollar, wealthy people create businesses and they hire people and they employ people, and the dollar circulates. So the same thing will happen with these wealthy Bitcoiners. They'll buy things, they'll build businesses, they'll employ people, and the coins will circulate.
Yeah. Well,
Or you'll grow old, die, and your kids will swim with it.
Yeah.
Well, or as Saylor says, if you want to make the ultimate contribution to humanity and to all your fellow Bitcoiners, you'll die with your keys and you won't tell anybody about them, and they'll become part of the lost coins, because you'll have pro rata increase the value of everybody else's coins. Yeah, by taking yours out of the supply, right? To the grave. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, we've never really seen or had anything like this. I mean, it's the ultimate item that makes saving a virtue. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you hear all these people who are like, you see this stuff on the Twitter. It's so funny. This guy's like, you buy new tires. I saw there's a picture of a guy, his tires totally bald, right? He goes, you buy new tires. These are my tires. I buy Bitcoin. We are not the same. It's like, you drive around a car, the tires are totally bald, right? I mean, it's just like, okay. I mean, personally, I'd rather have a safe car, but I get it.
So ultimately, won't we hit a point where Bitcoin is only, if it becomes the world currency, it will be just a store of value where it won't have near the kind of
I think that's right. I mean, I think it will grow at the rate of GDP, or it'll grow. Its value. There'll be some natural. Long term in the British Council yielded 2 or 3%. I mean, I think longer term, the yield on Bitcoin will trend down towards like 2 or 3% because it'll be fully distributed. But that's got to be 50 years out. Do you know what I mean? Until it's that fully distributed. And as Saylor points out, I think the next 10 years are the real gold rush. I mean, we're gonna go. I mean, another way of looking at it is the whole tipping point theory, the Malcolm Gladwell new innovations, and the way there's. If you look at refrigerators, cars, radio, TV, airplane, anything, there's a time where it's getting built and adopted, and you at some point you reach the point where 10% of the population cares about it and uses it. I don't think we're there yet. We're maybe getting close. I don't know. What do you think, John? Maybe we're at 5% or something who care and use it. And then when you hit 10 point, you hit a tipping point where it's like, okay, this is a good innovation. We really need this shit. And then it just grows really, really quick, up to 90%, and then it levels off, and the last late adopters come in after that. And the theory, he showed it on all these other examples, is that the time it took to go from 0 to 10% is about the same amount of years it takes to go from 10 to 90.
Wow.
Right?
So
it's an S curve, right?
Have you looked at the report on the wallet downloads every 24 hours now?
I haven't. No. What does it show you that?
Yeah. So I'll find the link. I'll send it. It's 1 million new wallet downloads for exchange wallets every 24 hours now.
Wow.
A year ago, it was 200,000.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Yeah, that's good data.
And then, so 4 years ago, it was only 17,000 wallet downloads every 24 hours.
Wow.
So the acceleration of that adaptation has now hit that critical mass, and it's at the same time when we're getting this halving, and then the skyrocket of the
So if it's 1 million a day, and that's 365 million in a world of 8 billion people,
right.
but count, say we're really only 5 billion have
Yeah.
phones and are
Correct.
so 500 million. Yeah. So we're getting really close to the 10%, right?
And it's China and it's India.
Right.
Majority of this. The other third is Africa. It's not even the U.S. It's not Europe.
Well, that's the really, I mean, you think about it, I mean, we're all looking at this as a savings technology, way to beat fiat, all this other stuff. I mean, you read Alex Gladstein and, his book, Check Your Financial Privilege, which is a wonderful book. And I met Alex and I have enormous respect for him. He's not in this for the money at all. He is completely in this to help poor third world people be able to bank themselves and be able to not get ripped off. And as long as you have a phone, and even poor people now can get a smartphone, a cheap, you can self-custody your coins. And, I mean, I know a lot of the domestic people that, that have been cleaned my house. I mean, I know they, over the years in various places, they send money back to Guatemala. They send money back to wherever, Brazil, and they get ripped off. They get 10 to 30% of their money goes to the money changers. And now, you put on a Lightning transaction, it's 4 cents, so go ahead.
We have a missionary through Cuba because they were dying.
Same idea. Yeah.
They sent Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many Gladstein's book lays out these stories. There's so many fabulous stories. Like there were these women who were in Afghanistan who, were doing work and couldn't figure out how to get paid and were getting, attacked. And I mean, it was horrible. And until they discovered Bitcoin and they started getting paid in Bitcoin, and they could actually save money and buy things.
Yeah. What was reaching Cuba was like
a fraction of what you sent, right? Yeah.
Once they got into the
right.
Bitcoin.
Well, and I've heard Nigeria, I think I could be wrong, there are 100 million, maybe 200 million people in Nigeria. I've heard that like 30 or 40% of Nigeria uses cryptocurrency. And the local currency is worthless. I mean, it's so they've all, I mean, this is life or death for some people, and it's making their lives better.